Hey there, Rappies. Rapper9198 here, and welcome to another edition of Ryan's Day Reading. Today, I'll be reading Chapter 9 of How to Train Your Dragon, Fear, Vanity, Revenge, and Silly Jokes. Alright, so just, I think, a little bit of a recap from the previous chapter. Yep, training your dragon the hard way. So, Hiccup has brought Toothless home, and of course he's trying to not do it by yelling, and of course things are off to a rocky start. Toothless has had a few accidents, I'll put it that way. He went to the bathroom inside when he was pooing in the kitchen. So anyways, yep, and I know Hiccup is trying his best to try to speak in Dragonese. So here we go. So, Fear, Vanity, Revenge, and Silly Jokes. Alright, March turned into April, and April turned into May. After Fireworm's remark about the pathetic bunny rabbit, Toothless never pooed in the kitchen again. But Hiccup hadn't made any further progress in training him. It was still raining, but it was a warm rain. The wind was blowing, but it was a less furious wind. It was just about possible to stand upright. The gull's eggs were hatching on the rocks, and the parent gulls dive-bombed Hiccup and Fish Legs when they came to the lawn beach to practice. "Kill, Horror Cow, kill!" said Fish Legs to Horror Cow, who was calmly perched on his shoulder. "You could have that black-backed gull for breakfast. He's barely half your size. Honestly, Hiccup, I give up. I don't know how I'm going to pass the hunting section of the test. Horror Cow just doesn't have the killer instinct. She'd never survive in the wild." Picture there. Hiccup laughed howlily. "You think you've got problems? Toothless and I are failing right from the beginning. The basic obedience commands, the retrieval, the compulsory exercises, the hunting, the lot. It can't be that bad," said Fish Legs. "Watch," said Hiccup. The boys moved along the beach a bit, out of range of the gulls. They started practicing the most basic command of all: go. The dragon was supposed to stand, bolt upright, on the handler's outstretched arm. The handler would then bark the command as loudly as possible while simultaneously lifting his arm to fling the dragon into the air. The dragon was supposed to soar gracefully into flight when the handler's arm reached its highest point. Horror Cow yawned, scratched, and slowly flapped off, grumbling to herself. Toothless was even less obedient. "Go!" yelled Hiccup. Hiccup flung his arm up. Toothless hung on. "I said go!" Hiccup repeated in frustration. "Why go?" shuddered Toothless, gripping even tighter. Just go, screamed Hiccup, flapping his arm up and down frantically, with Toothless hanging onto it for dear life. Toothless stayed. "Toothless," said Hiccup, as reasonably as he could, "please go. If you don't start going when I tell you to, we are both going to be thrown into exile." "But I don't want to go," Toothless pointed out equally reasonably. Yep, here they are. He is struggling there. Fishlegs watched the whole process in appalled amazement. You really do have problems, he said in an awed voice. Yep, said Hiccup. He finally managed to uncurl Toothless's claws, which had relaxed their grip for a second, and pushed him off. Toothless landed on the sand with a squeal of outrage and immediately attached himself to Hiccup's leg, getting a good grip on the sandals with his talons, and wrapping his wings around Hiccup's calf. No, not going, said Toothless stubbornly. It can't get much worse than this, said Hiccup, so I'm going to try a new tack. He took out the notebook in which he had been jotting down all he knew about dragons in the hope that it might be useful. Dragon motivation, Hiccup read aloud. Number 1, gratitude. Hiccup sighed. Number 2, fear. That works, but I can't do it. 3, 4, 5, creed, vanity, and revenge. Those are all worth a try. And 6, jokes and riddling talk. Only if I'm desperate. This has got to be a first, drawled Fishlegs. But I'm with Gobber the Belch on this one. Why don't you just yell a bit louder? Hiccup ignored him. Okay, Toothless, said Hiccup to the little dragon, who was pretending to be asleep as he held onto Hiccup's legs. For every fish you catch me, I will give you 2 more lobsters when you get home. Toothless opened his eyes. Alive? He said eagerly. Can Toothless kill them? Please? Just this once? No, Toothless, said Hiccup firmly. I keep on telling you, it isn't kind to torture creatures smaller than yourself. Toothless closed his eyes again. You're so boring, he said sulkily. You're such a clever, quick dragon, Toothless. Hiccup flattered. I bet you could catch more fish than any of the others on Thursday, if you wanted to. Toothless opened his eyes to consider the matter. Twice as many? He said modestly. But I don't want to. This was unanswerable. Hiccup crossed Vanity off his list. You know that big red fireworm dragon who was so rude to you, said Hiccup. Toothless spat on the ground in indignation. Said, I was a newt with wings. Said, I was an incontinent bunny rabbit. Toothless was going to kill her. Toothless going to scratch her to death. Toothless going to. Yes, said Hiccup hastily. That fireworm dragon and her master who looks like a pig think that fireworm is going to catch more fish than anybody else at the Thursday celebrations. Think how stupid they are going to look if you win the prize for most promising dragon instead of her. Toothless got off Hiccup's leg. I will. I will think about that, said Toothless. He waddled off a couple of feet and thought about it. 5 minutes later, he was still thinking. He let out the odd chuckle every now and then. But every time Hiccup said, So, how about it then? He just replied, Still thinking, go away. With a sigh, Hiccup put a line through revenge. Okay, said Fishlegs, looking over Hiccup's shoulder. You've tried everything else. How about jokes and riddling talk? I assume you're desperate. Toothless, said Hiccup. If you catch me a nice big mackerel, you will be the cleverest, fastest dragon on Berk. And You will make that fireworm dragon look like an idiot, and you will have all the lobsters you can eat when we get home, and I will tell you a really good joke." Toothless turned around. Toothless loves jokes. He flapped onto Hiccup's arm again. "All right, Toothless. Toothless help you. But not because me being nice or anything yucky." No, said Hiccup. "Of course not. Us dragons cruel and mean, but we do love a joke. Tell me now." Hiccup laughed. "No way. After you bring me a mackerel." "Okay then," said Toothless. He jumped off Hiccup's arm into the air. A dragon hunting is a very impressive sight, even a scrawny infant one like Toothless. He flew across the beach in his usual untidy, lopsided fashion, shrieking a few insults along the way at any cormorants that looked smaller than him. But as soon as he reached the sea, Toothless seemed to grow up a bit. The sea salt awoke him an ancestral memory of the great pedigree hunting monsters that were his forefathers. He spread out his wings like a kite and flew fairly swiftly over the surface of the choppy waves, keeping his body and wings steady as he searched for the movement of fish. He spotted something and soared upward in circles until he was so high up that Hiccup, craning his neck backward on the beach, could only just see him as a tiny speck. The speck was motionless for a second, and then Toothless dived, his wings folded by his side, dropping like a stone out of the sky. He disappeared into the water and was gone for quite a while. Dragons can stay underwater for at least 5 minutes if they want to, and Toothless got quite distracted under there, chasing one fish and then another, unable to decide which was the biggest. Hiccup had gotten bored and was looking for oysters when Toothless came bursting triumphantly out of the sea, carrying a small mackerel. He dropped the mackerel at Hiccup's feet, did 3 somersaults in a row, and landed on Hiccup's head. He let out the dragon's cry of triumph, which was a bit like a rooster. A rooster crowing, but a lot louder and more self-satisfied. Then he leaned over and stared into Hiccup's eyes upside down. "Now, to tell me a joke," said Toothless. "Whimpering Wodens," said Hiccup. "He did it! He really did it! To tell me a joke," said Toothless again. "What's black and white and red all over?" asked Hiccup. Toothless didn't know. "A sunburned penguin," replied Hiccup. It was a very, very old joke, but apparently it hadn't made it to Wild Dragon Cliff. Toothless thought it was hysterically funny. He flew off to catch more fish so he could hear more jokes. It was an enjoyable afternoon. The rain stopped, the sun shone, and Toothless didn't do too badly at all with the hunting. He dropped a few fish and at one point wandered off entirely to chase rabbits on the cliff tops. But he came back when Hiccup called. Eventually, by the end of the couple of hours, he had caught 6 medium-sized mackerel and a dogfish. All in all, Hiccup was pretty satisfied. "After all," he said to Fishlegs, "it's not like I'm expecting to win the prize for most promising dragon or anything. All I need is to show that Toothless is basically under my control, and for him to catch a few fish. We'll make fools of ourselves compared to Snotlout and his beastly hunting legend, but at least we'll have past initiation." What was more, as Toothless dropped the last mackerel on the heap in front of Hiccup, Fish Legs noticed something sharp and gleaming in the dragon's lower jaw. Toothless has gotten his first tooth, said Fish Legs. It seemed a very good omen. As they staggered home, they passed Old Wrinkly, who had been sitting on a rock watching them for the past couple of hours. Very impressive. Very impressive, wheezed Old Wrinkly as the boys showed him the fish wrapped up in Hiccup's cloak. We reckon Hiccup really might pass the final initiation test on Thursday, said Fish Legs excitedly. We reckon Hiccup really might pass the final initiation test on Thursday, said Fish Legs excitedly. So you're still worrying about that piddly little test, are you, Hiccup? Asked Old Wrinkly. There are larger concerns, you know. There's a ginormous storm brewing up, for instance. It should hit us in about 3 days. Piddly little test, said Fish Legs indignantly. What do you mean, piddly little test? The Thursday Festival is the biggest event of the year. Everybody who is anybody will be there. All the hairy hooligans and the meatheads, plus, this may not seem important to you, but anybody who fails this piddly little test gets put into exile to get eaten up by cannibals or something equally gruesome. I'm going to call myself Hiccup the Useful, and his dragon Toothful, said Hiccup, beaming. I thought of it just now, and I'm really pleased with it. It's solid, dependable, not too flashy, and not too much to live up to. This reptile finally got his act together and caught some fish, said Fish Legs, pointing at Toothless, who was picking his nose with one claw. Incredible, though it may seem. Hiccup may pass this test after all. Oh, I think it's almost a certainty, said Old Wrinkly, looking at Toothless, who is now attempting to cross his eyes and was falling down in the process. Almost, repeated Old Wrinkly thoughtfully. And the boys went home, with Toothless following behind them, whining, Oh, carry me. It's not fair. My wings ache. There's Toothless right there. Yep, with teeth starting to come in. See, and that concludes it for chapter 10. For chapter 9. And there was here. Let me read this. Show you this. This was on page 94. Yep. So the dragons and their eggs. So we'll read this part here. The monstrous nightmare. The monstrous nightmare is the largest and most terrifying of the domestic dragons. Dazzling flyers, magnificent hunters, and fearsome fighters. They can be wild and difficult to train. By unofficial Viking law, only a chief or the son of a chief can own one. And then statistics, colors, emerald green, brilliant scarlet, deepest purple. And of course in the book, we don't know exactly what color Toothless is, but those are the different colors that it could be. Armed with scary fangs and extra extendable claws. Its defenses, nightmares don't need defenses. Radar, none. Poison, bite is slightly poisonous. Hunting ability, amazing to watch, as we just read. Speed, fast. And then fear and fight factor, very, very scary. So here's, sorry, here, let me show you that. This is kind of the whole thing right there. So yeah, I could definitely see all these applying to Toothless. And it's definitely, certainly is amazing to watch, and I think it's also pretty much how I mentioned before, how I do feel like this book is basically the same concept as, you know, training a dog, having to train a new pet. And then when you see that they're making a breakthrough, there's that whole concept of making those breakthroughs. Like I think with Toothless hunting and how Hiccup was just so amazed by it. I think he was also proud and was actually, I'm sure he surprised himself by thinking, wow, he's actually starting to do it. It's definitely, you know, it's not all the way there yet, but it's definitely a big step in the right direction. And I think it's, and the same thing applies with pets, as I keep mentioning there. So I think, I do love how these books can actually serve a good purpose like that. I think it does, in a way, teach us about training pets. If, you know, people want to own a dog or own, you know, a pet of any kind, I think it's really good to be like, in a way, I think the book does serve as a guide, and a guide in a sense. Like, you know, you don't have to be yelling and try to be so overpowering, but you just have to get down more to their level. But also, you have to show that you're the one in charge, that you are the boss, and that, you know, that they have to obey you. So yeah, I think that's, again, what I'm starting to get out of this whole book, and I like seeing that they're making a breakthrough out of this chapter. All right, so that's it for chapter 9, and stay tuned next time as we go into chapter 10. They're going to the Thursday. So Thursday, chapter 10 for next time. All right, thank you, Rappies, very much. Hope you guys enjoyed. Love you all to death. God bless, and I'll see you next time. Bye.